AWS can look very scary to beginners, but let's walk through how I'm currently using it to deploy my bot. It may seem complicated, but it's ultimately the most fail-proof way and the least expensive way rather than using render. Alright, first you need to create an AWS account. Now, assuming you've done this, you're going to sign into your AWS Management Console. Step 1 is going to be setting up an AWS Lambda function. This part is tricky, so I will have to defer to the AWS documentation for most of it, but hopefully, with me walking through it, we'll get through this together. Now with AWS, you should get a free year of compute power, which is assuming you don't start the next Netflix. Now you head to the Lambda link under the compute section, and we're going to create a Lambda function by clicking the create function in this top right. We're going to go ahead and author this from scratch, which we will call retweet bot. It's going to be a Python 3.6, and we're going to create a new role with basic Lambda permissions. So go ahead and click create function, and this should only take a moment. Now before we upload the script, let's create the trigger. Similar to a Google Tag Manager, we need to create a trigger event which launches the script. In this instance, we can add a trigger by going into the designer, and as far as the trigger configuration, we are going to choose the CloudWatch events option. For the rule, we're going to create a new rule with the rule name retweet trigger. For the rule description, event to trigger our retweet bot. And then we have to schedule an expression, which for us, we can write rate 1 hour, which is similar to how we use the cron job expression, but we're just telling it to run every hour. So go ahead and add this. Great, now we have our event trigger. So at this moment in time, let's jump back to our VS Studio code. Now what we're going to do here to make things a little bit easier instead of dealing with the environment variables, and since we're running this on our own AWS account, let's create a new script, call it retweet bot AWS. And basically what we're going to do is instead of using that env, we are going to go ahead and call the API keys, secrets, and access tokens in secret directly. So to do this, we can actually go to our env file, copy it, and paste it in the file, deleting that export. Great, and the one thing you're going to want to do is import Tweepy. Now if you recall, we're going to have to authorize our Tweepy API object. So to do this, we can paste what we did in our initial Tweepy test script, where we are using the OAuth handler and passing in the API key and secret, and then setting the access token and access secret to create this API object. Now from here, we can go to our services file, and we can go ahead and copy that services function that we were using. Now, one thing again we're going to do here is just remove the variables. So instead of passing in the API and username, we already have the API object above, and the username, we are going to go back to using the actual screen name of David Dobrik, and I'm just adding in a 10 count here so we don't go back and retweet all of his likes in the past. And then to turn it into a Lambda function, we want to define the Lambda handler, which takes in the event and the context. So here we have our API keys, secrets, tokens, and secrets locally. So again, make sure we don't add this to our GitHub file. which we can do by going to the git ignore, and we could tell it not to include the retweet bot aws.py. So save this and head back, and then we're going to authorize Tweepy, and then now we are actually creating the Lambda function, which will run the event, and that is going to run our script. So let's save this and head back to our AWS console. So now if we go back to our function and we see our function code, we're going to want to upload a zip file instead. And again, our Lambda function here is actually going to be the name of our file, which is retweet bot AWS, and that is going to call the Lambda handler inside. We're using a Python 3.6 environment. To create our zip file, we're going to do this the old-fashioned way. We're going to take that retweetbot._AWS Python file, and we're going to copy it. Then, within our virtual environment, let's go into the lib folder, then the Python 3.6 folder, then the site packages folder, and go ahead and paste that new file, the retweet bot. Take all of these files, select them all, and then right-click and compress them into a zip file. Let's go ahead and rename that retweet bot zip. Great. And now if we go back to our AWS console, we're going to upload that zip file we just created in our site packages folder. There's the zip. Go ahead and open that. It's uploaded. So now let's save this. Okay, and one last important caveat. For the handler, we want to make sure we name it the following to where it's our Python script .lambda handler. So again, this would be the retweet bot AWS, and it's going to call that Lambda handler event that we defined. So let's save this to make sure it's up to date. Cool. From here, we're basically done. We can go ahead and test this script, and after that, it will be running on the hour for very cheap pennies, and running our retweet bot in the background. So let's go ahead and test this. So let's go ahead and test, and it looks like it was successful. Great, so these are the logs. It looks like we did already retweet them, but that's because we just ran that with the render, but it looks like everything is set and we are now good to go. Not too bad, was it?